Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shadburn Show. I'm glad to have you back. My guest for this week is Brook Brotzman. Brook Brotzman is the founder and president of Ministries Incorporated. Brook and I sat down and we talked about his life and his upbringing, and we talked about the method behind his ministry and all the things that they are involved in and they hope to accomplish. Me and Brook discussed a lot of things that are going on in the world and just our perspective on it as Christians and his perspective on it as a leader and a father. And we just dove into a lot, and it was such a great conversation. Ministries Incorporated, just to give you some information on that before we jump in, is a nonprofit organization. And basically, their bio is Go Ministries empowers local leaders to redeem people, renew communities, and restore creation through mutual transformation. So the mutual transformation aspect is actually something that Brook dives into on the podcast. So it's a very interesting thing to learn about, and I think Go Ministries and himself just has a lot to offer, and I think that you guys would benefit a lot from checking it out. Their ministry organization is very heavily involved in accepting volunteer work and being able to place you in an area that you could benefit your community or a community at another part of the world. And they're really efficient at that, and it's something that I would recommend everybody check out and just see if it would be a good fit for you. So before we get into this episode real quick, thank you all for listening. Thank you for keeping up. Thank you for staying tuned. More developing of the podcast is happening, trying to make it easier to get in front of you, easier to listen to, improving the equipment, improving the technology, improving the style, and just want to thank you all for your support and for everything that you guys have said to me and Laura, just giving us encouragement. This is a huge passion of mine, and I just I'm really appreciative of the thoughts and the prayers and the just the overall support. If you want to support financially, we have two donation pages. One is on the website of the podcast that you can donate to regularly, and then another one is our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/George Shadburn, and you can sign up to donate there as well. Thank you all regardless, though. And now let's go ahead and get into the episode. This is Brook Brotzman with Go Ministries Incorporated, and this is the Shadburn Show. Alrighty, Brook Brotzman, thank you for coming on the show.
Glad to be here, Drew. Thank you.
We met at Southeast through your daughter, Brianna.
Yep.
And you are the founder and president of Go Ministries.
That's correct.
And, for one, just thank you for coming on to the show. But I wanted to give you a chance, obviously, to introduce yourself first before we dive into some questions and everything. And just, before we get going, can you tell the audience who you are real quick and a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name is Brook Brotzman, and, I'm just one of those kids, a little bit of a tough upbringing. My dad was gone a lot, military and then overseas jobs, and found my way to God at an early age and kind of wandered from my faith and found my way back and ended up going to Bible college and becoming a youth pastor and just wanted to make a difference in kids' lives. But I got in that place where I felt like we were just entertaining kids. We were big events and concerts, and nothing wrong with those things. All great ways to gather people. But I didn't feel like what we were producing were real Christ followers, more fans. Yeah. And I just shifted it all and said, we're only going to do worship and service. And And that's what we did. And it was an amazing transformation that took place. And we began to serve in inner city things and food pantries and, tough parts of the city of Chicago and New York and Philadelphia. And then finally we went overseas. And God just captured my heart. The Dominican people, I've been in many parts of the world. And, of course, poverty's everywhere. It's right here in our own backyard, right?
Right, exactly.
But God did something special in my heart, and I knew that's where I was going to spend the rest of my life serving.
Nice.
And trying to help people see a bigger reality and see God at work. And we're so consumed with all of our conveniences and electronics and,
Right.
even
Seriously.
more every day there's a new unbelievable discovery in gaming. And
Yeah.
But, when people get away from all that stuff and they get out and are actually just hanging with people, it is amazing. So we started with one team and then 3, then 10, then 25. And, we would have had 90 teams this past year if it weren't for all the COVID stuff. And But God has been incredibly faithful, and we are ramped up and fired up for cutting loose here soon.
Has it slowed down a lot with being able to go back and forth to the Dominican Republic?
Yeah, it has. And, specifically for our staff, I mean, everyone was kind of just hunkered down and going to hang in there. And then I finally just said, hey, folks, we need to use this time. You need to rest, and you need to connect with family. And if you need to come home, come home. Our partners have been so incredible in supporting. And it is, I told them from early on, I said, we're not going to be the victims in this.
Yeah.
God's not surprised by this. He is sovereign. He is on the throne. And we're going to live into that. And so I said, I don't want anyone calling anyone asking for money. And I get a lot of ministries have had to do that to keep the doors open.
Right.
But I knew God was calling us to something else during the season. I said, I want you calling everyone and thanking them for what they have done and asking how you can pray for them.
Yeah.
And it has been amazing what's happened. And where we thought we lost 70 of our 90 teams that were coming.
Wow.
Our bulk of our stuff happens in the summer from the end of May to August, and there'll be 55 to 60 teams come down to serve across the country, and 1,500 people, and that just all got shut down. And I think most organizations that would kill, but we actually have grown during this time. Our local leaders, and that's really the secret sauce is we don't go and do ministry. We empower, encourage, and equip local leaders to redeem people, renew communities, and restore creation. And we do that through the vehicle of mutual transformation. Yeah. People go to serve, but they get served. They go to teach, but they learn. They go to give, but they receive.
Right.
That's the way God wants it to be.
So is there, people try to start ministries all the time. Some people will feel called to start a ministry for a particular niche. And I just had somebody on the podcast who basically is in the field of human trafficking and has started a ministry there in Atlanta and West Virginia. But I guess talking to you as a founder and everything, what has been your takeaway from starting and running a ministry and where you've gotten to now? Has there been any sort of things that you've learned over time that most people probably would not understand initially?
Well, first off, you can't fault anyone's heart for wanting to do something, right? I love that. There are people who just are moved in their heart, and it's really about what they're, I always say your ability plus your desire equals God's call.
Oh, wow. But
God's call is always backed up by his provision. If he doesn't provide, then you got one of those first two things wrong, right? Okay. So either many people think they have ability to do something that they don't. I mean, I'd like to be a 6'9" playing in the NBA, but that clearly is not going to happen, right? Yeah. I'd love to have long flowing hair again. Not going to happen, right? So it can't just be something you want. It has to be really, I think God puts a little spark in people's hearts and lives, and it can be small. Yeah. I mean, I run into small little ministries all the time, and they're doing what they can do, and God bless them for that. And then others have a larger capacity. And then I remember we do a $500 project. That was pretty, it had its challenges when you're a young youth pastor,
Right.
making, $28,000 living in Chicago.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
You're good.
So at the end of it, you go from these $500 projects to, you see God show up, and then now you're in a $5,000 project, and you're scared to death. And how's this ever? It's so overwhelming. How are you going to get there?
Yeah.
And then you step out in faith, and you trust God, and you share the vision, and then you accomplish that $5,000 project.
Yeah.
Then God opens these bigger doors for you to do a $50,000 project.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it would have to move a mountain for this to happen.
So it's being, figuring out how to be faithful with little so you can be faithful with more.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you just get more comfortable with the numbers. Now we're into, from that, $500,000 project to $5 million. We're in a $25 million project right now. And
Louise.
it's a little overwhelming if you look at it as it's on you. But when you realize you are just being faithful to what God's called you to, and you're inviting others into it, because let me tell you, people say I'm a good fundraiser. I'm not a fundraiser. I believe in mutual transformation. I believe God has blessed, especially Americans, with so much. And unfortunately, many of them think it's for them. I'll give my 10%, I'm all good. Really, you're going to stand before the King of Kings, the Holy One, the one who sent his son to die for the sins of the world, that wants everyone to know him and to be saved. And you're going to be good with, I'm living on high and I throw my 10% in the plate.
Yeah.
I don't want to live like that, and I don't want others to live like that.
That's compartmentalizing your faith and God. It's putting God in a box, basically.
Well, Reagan preached a few weeks ago, and I've known Matt Reagan for over 20 years, and he said something in a very passionate way. He said, look, if you want to come to church and just grow and be a better man or husband or father, I guess you can do that.
Right.
But don't tell me for 1 minute, don't dare tell me for 1 minute that that's what God made you for. I think people settle. And, we've all settled. Let's be honest. So I love that we get to invite people to mutual transformation. And once they dip their toe in the water, man, it's so fun to see them get all in.
Right.
Whether it's with Go or any other ministry or their church at home. And, what's pretty significantly different about Go is for 8 days when you go on a trip with Go, our staff are pouring in intentionally the theology of redemption and incarnational ministry. We want people to go home and be intentionally engaging and different in their own communities to redeem people, renew communities, and restore creation.
Yeah.
And it's super exciting to watch it happen.
So that mutual transformation is what's the method to that, basically? Like are you seeking to, like I know in Romans it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And, we go all the way back to creation, to our original design and everything. What is mutual transformation in Go Ministries?
Well, it's the basic concept that when you are engaging in gospel principle, incarnational ministry, Jesus walked with people. He ate with people. He worked with people. He hung out with people.
He had relationships. Yeah.
He built community everywhere he went, right? And so you can preach all you want from a pulpit, but many people will never darken the doorway. It's a relative to them, right? We're saying, our seminary guys basically teach, that in the church we want to say, behave, then believe, then you can belong. And that's not the gospel. The gospel is you already belong to God. He loves you. He's in relentless pursuit of his creation, right? He wants you.
Yeah.
He sent Christ to die for your sins so that you could get this free pass, right? So you already belong. And we want you to come and be a part. And then you'll believe. And once you believe, you'll behave. Trying to change behavior so that you can belong is just a losing philosophy.
Right.
So when you go and, there's somebody poor, like in the Dominican, many super poor communities, they don't have access to clean water, medical, education. A storm goes through and we'll go in and put 20 roofs on houses. We'll make meals and then we'll just sit around and play some worship and then people start gathering.
Yeah. And that's where the real ministry begins.
It is, because they saw that you came to help, to serve during this COVID crisis. We're like, what do? We can't really go. Everyone's in lockdown. We called and said, well, gathered all of our pastors. What are the needs? We talked to them online. What is it you need?
Yeah.
People are starving. People are going hungry. So we found a company to bag up bags of food for a week for a family of 6, so they could eat every day. And we provided hundreds of thousands of meals. It was amazing what happened through that little gesture. So they knew how to meet the need of their community, not us.
Right.
So here's how mutual transformation happens. You're here in Crestwood, you give a gift to help this bag of food be made. A pastor on the ground are your hands and feet.
Wow.
Taking it to somebody. And I can't tell you how many people said, I've never been to your church. My government didn't step up for me. My family couldn't step up. They had nothing to give.
Right.
And you saved our life. I'll be there the day the doors open.
Wow.
We've had multiple baptisms, and we do a lot in prison ministry, both here and there. And we're in, I think, 9 different prisons now, creating small groups, basically house church. Have you connected with
Tony Cash at all?
I know Tony. We support, Tony's doing great stuff. I'm excited for him. But years ago, someone asked me to give a gentleman who's he started a ministry in prison over 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
Daryl Davis, and he started the Prisoner's Hope.
Okay.
And so I gave him some office space for a year, and that turned into a couple more offices for a couple years. And then we have a building like a Kingdom Business that we have in J-Town, and we put them down in a double suite down there and have helped them and coached them. And now they actually have come underneath the Go umbrella, so we keep them as their own separate 501c3, but they answer and report to our board. And so we do it both here and there. And I think Daryl's been very successful because he's, he has a 2-year mentorship program. So he helps, pre-incarceration, helping people prepare for what's going to happen before they go in.
Yeah.
And then they have to commit to 2 years of mentoring while they're in, and then helps them when they get out. And it's a beautiful thing of redemption, man.
Wow. He meets people before they go to prison.
That's really actually the most successful, when they know what they're getting into going in. Daryl was blessed that he found faith before he went in, and so God spared him a lot of unnecessary foolishness because he went in and got under a chaplain. And
I've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
Like, I've never thought about that waiting period before going to prison and what that must be like.
Yeah, we know several people. I mean, it's people always think you go to prison, you're a gangster, and you're shooting things up. There's a lot of white collar crime. There's people who cooked the books or made a bad decision, or, hey, I'll say it was this and you say that, and I'll get this cut in between, and go to jail for 18 months, and it changes their whole life. So when you got someone like Daryl who's been there, done that, and can help prepare them, it's pretty special.
Jeez. So you're networking with a lot of other ministries and 501c3s, but
we coach a lot of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
you're
we
on the
have
coaching and mentoring side.
Right. Our chief operating officer, he's a lawyer by trade. He's basically, a structure guy.
Okay.
And so a lot of ministries get going with a good heart and a good intention and few supporters, but they don't really have a solid plan. They don't have. There's just so many pieces to growing an organization.
Right.
It all depends on the kind of leader that you have. Do you have a Moses or do you have a Joshua?
Yeah.
And,
do you operate and label by that? Like, do you say kind of more of like a Joshua?
It's not. We operate more. We use this. The government uses this kind of a strength finder, but it's, in my opinion, it's the most reliable thing, and it's called the Brookman. And basically, and it's not a talent thing. It basically says how you are normally perceived. This is your normal mode of operation.
Okay.
This is where your interest is, and then what is most helpful is knowing what your stress is.
Yeah.
Like, people look at me and they're like, Brook makes decisions like that. I mean, big decisions, just boom, off the cuff from the seat of his pants.
Yeah.
That's really not true. It takes me time. I want all the information. I want to get input from everyone. I want to know the facts. But then when I decide, it looks instantaneous. And once I've decided, I'm ready to roll.
It's a clear decision. Yeah.
Right. But what I didn't know about myself was stress comes for me when there's not a plan. And people would say, oh, he's not a planner. I like a plan. I don't care if it changes, but let's know where we're heading. I would never get in a car and just start driving.
Oh, I can resonate with that.
I want to know people are like, why do you drive so fast? Why are you always going? I'm like,
there's a destination.
There's a place I'm heading, and I want to get there.
But you're probably playing like many steps ahead than like most people would probably take into account.
Like a good pool player, there are people who will break a rack of balls, and they say that's the easiest one to put in, so I'm going to put that in.
Right.
But a good pool player looks ahead and says, I'm saving that. I'm going to block that pocket from somebody else, and I'm going to bring this ball back here because then that sets me up for that, and that sets me up for that. Yeah. And it's not just striking the ball and putting that ball in. It's what kind of spin are you going to put on that cue so it creates the opposite spin on that ball to get the desired results. And that's the way it is with business and ministry is when you create a structure, it has to serve. The structure is a servant to the mission.
Okay.
Right? And so structures can change. There's nothing holy or perfect about a structure. Yeah. They serve you, and then you outgrow them.
Right.
And sometimes it just flat don't work. Mm-hmm. They're like the Cubs. They look good on paper, right?
Yeah.
But so we're blessed to have...
You a big Cubs fan?
No.
Oh, okay.
I grew up a White Sox fan, and Mike Matheny has done a lot with our ministry, and he was with the Cardinals for about 7 years.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of became Cardinals fan. Now he's with the Royals, so
yeah,
I guess we'll be Royal fans.
There you go.
I'm a Jesus fan. That's who I root for.
I don't keep up with baseball too much. My dad played for the Phillies.
Oh, really?
No, excuse me, AAA for the Phillies.
Okay.
But he pitched at UK.
Okay.
And that was his claim to fame and everything.
Awesome.
But his claim to fame actually was he was the only pitcher that always hit home runs as well. Like, he was just a big dude. He's a big, broad, 6'4"
That's
man.
awesome.
And but yeah, he was a killer there. But yeah, going back to talking about what it takes to run a ministry and everything. Is there a certain aptitude that you feel like you need to have to run a ministry, kind of like being a CEO or a businessman?
Again, it's all about your wiring. Anyone can lead a ministry. I've known elderly women who have started a sewing ministry, and they gather 4 people, and they quilt and sew and talk about Jesus and a great fellowship.
Yeah.
Love it, And then I know others who are just, it depends on, number one, you got to have faith. You got to believe in what you're doing.
Right.
And for me, I believe we've been successful because, we're, number one, we always believe it's God's. Any good thing is because of Him. And people always ask, how have you grown this to this? And like, number one, when we feel like the Holy Spirit is leading and guiding, we just go. Mm-hmm. We just step out. I'm not quite sure how we're going to pay for that. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this or do that. Mm-hmm. But if I sense that God is in it, we just do it. And it's so fun to watch Him just step up and bring the right people and all the right things that have to happen. So I think for me, it's acknowledging that it's God's, and then how much faith do you have? Mm-hmm. Do you have, the talents?
Yeah.
Are you a 1 talent guy, a 3 talent guy, a 5 talent guy?
Right.
And I've said I want to be a 1,000,000 talent guy. I want God to use me to the fullest extent, and Scripture says God uses the foolish things of this world to confound the ways of the wise.
Yeah.
I don't know why He chose to use me in the way He has, but I'm grateful.
So, and it sounds like you just displayed something where you may have to practice your faith the most. You said you're a major plan guy, but then you said like every now and then you got to step out and you've got to like literally wait on Jesus to like bring forth, the provision on whatever it may be, whether it's helping hands or money or whatever. I think there's a lot of back and forth that's going on in our church nowadays about the what's biblical about, setting up provision or the way to go about, planning or like gathering helping hands and stuff like that, do you have sort of a method that you have, and I know I'm making this kind of a broad question, but I've got a lot of missionary friends that are like saying, you know, God's just going to bring it. Like, I'm going to go and God's just going to bring it. And I'm like, I love you, man. I hope that I hope that happens. But then I've got other people that I'm like, man, I wish you would do it. I wish you'd go. And they can't seem to pull the trigger because, you know, they're like, well, it's not here yet. It's not here yet. You know, do you have a balance, or do you kind of wrestle with that yourself?
Yeah, it's a journey for everybody. I know those people who say they've never asked for money and God just provides. I think that's awesome. It hasn't been, in our case, that's not what we teach. That's not how we train missionaries. We tell people your ability plus your desire is God's call, but He has to provide. And so there's nothing wrong with having structure and having a plan, and how you're going to get from here to there. Yeah. And things change in between. Sometimes you have to change strategies in the middle of the journey. You know, I was driving up here today and there was an accident on the other side of 71. Yeah. Those people are sitting in a 3-hour traffic jam. Somebody is going to be figuring out, I'm going to have to jump off at Buckner. Right. To get to where I'm going. It's the same with that. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to resources, that limits people. We have people all the time say, oh, I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to make a little money, pay off some school loans, and then I'm coming. They never come. Yeah. I'm going to have kids first and I'm going to do that. They rarely ever come. It is the people who say, I am called to this. I can't not do this. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm in. And they figure it out. Everyone's so intimidated about raising support. And I took someone, there was someone, was joining our staff a few years ago. And of course, we're having the normal conversation about being overwhelmed, scared about raising support. And I grabbed someone, been with us 2 years. And I said, hey, you remember we had this very conversation? And they're like, oh yeah. And remember how scared you were and weren't sure? Yeah. I said, how about now? He said, I wouldn't have, if you would have paid for me to go, I wouldn't take it. Because I would have missed out on this trusting God and these building relationships. And I have this team of people who are rooting for us, who are praying for us. And I get to be their hands and feet. They can't come, because of their other responsibilities in life, but they are thrilled that they get to help me do this. And every day I'm out sharing the gospel. Every day I'm pouring into local leaders to redeem, renew, and restore. And I get to be a part of that. It's a conceptual thing. Once people can get their mind around something, am I worthy of support? Yeah. Right. And we have the philosophy that it's all God's, all of it. And He's entrusted it to us, but He's going to hold us accountable for that. We never want to think about that part, The Bible talks about giving more than anything else in the Bible. And, even the manna, I mean, there's so many lessons to learn, God provided. Yeah. What did man do? Immediately they started thinking of a way, how do I get out of work? They worked hard at getting out of work. Yeah. Let me save it up so I don't have to go out and gather tomorrow. Right. Well, it turned into maggots. Yep. Because God's blessings are new and fresh each and every day. And God wants us to turn to Him and depend on Him and to seek Him and to go to Him every day. Yeah. For His provisions. Absolutely. And so I there's a balance. Yes, you want to have some security, but ultimately our security has to be that we've done what God's asked us to do. We've been as smart as we can of how to go about it, and we're going to trust Him to provide.
So, what would you say then to young missionaries or people in your organization that feel like they're meeting a lot of resistance? Let's say they are like, they're ready to go. They're like, I'm gonna hand this to the Lord. I'm gonna get there, and I'm gonna let God provide. But then, it feels like for a period of time, they're like, man, I'm meeting some resistance here, and my faith is shaken. It's just not coming in the way I thought it was, or it's not coming together the way I thought it was. Do you have to take people under your wing sometimes to talk to them about that?
All the time. I mean, we help a lot. We've helped a lot of organizations who are going through difficult time. A lot of it is they don't have structure. They don't have a real plan. It's, I want to do this. I'd like to do that. My plan is this, like, people want to raise money online, GoFundMe. That's a very temporary patch, right? You have to build relationships, and you have to invite people into the story, into what's going on. And typically it's just redirecting someone and calming their fears. Hey, you're not alone in this. You're not the first one to ever go raise support to go on the mission field.
Right.
You're not the first. And I used to work at a Bible college for a little bit, coaching soccer and recruiting. And I would have kids say, well, my parents won't pay for me to go to Christian college. I'm like, so?
Yeah.
I mean, did God call you to the ministry, or did your parents call you to the ministry?
Right.
It's God's job to provide. So, I went to Bible college, and I went to several colleges, but I ended up at a Bible college and a seminary. And in my 5 years of school, my parents gave me $100. It wasn't because they didn't believe in what I was doing, just they didn't have the money, right?
Yeah.
My dad probably wasn't supportive of what I was doing, but at the end of the day, I watched God show up in so many ways. One guy paid off my school bill twice when I was in college, and he was a cafeteria manager. Right?
Wow.
But God put it on his heart. We pray and God provides. And it's been my experience. And so when you can walk with people who are trembling a little bit, a little shaken, and trust me, I've had to go to people and saying, listen, if I could not have to go raise this big money for this, leadership development complex, but I can't, because I know it's what God's called me to.
Right.
But yeah, there are times you get a little shaken, then boom, this big gift comes in, and you're just humbled and like, God, forgive me for my lack of faith. Forgive me for wanting to take the easy way out and downsize it. And, but I think that's a natural thing. Yeah. But like sin, like anything else in your life, you got to get before the Lord and let him, get that out.
Wow. Cool. So Go Ministries down in the Dominican Republic, that's y'all's main focus right now. What is going to be the turnaround or the goal for 2021 or the years to come? Is there anything new developing, or is it?
Yeah, well, we're unique in that we don't just have one focus. So we have 4 focused areas of ministry where we work through sports, medical, community development, and church planning. We have an aggressive goal of planting 1,000 churches in the next 10 years. Obviously, there's going to be a year and a half or two taken out of that due to that. But we actually have learned and grown a lot through it, because our local leaders have had to step up and do so much more without us being there, and coaching through Zoom. And so it's been pretty cool. Yeah. There's a lot of really neat things that have come from that, and watching God provide and given us some time and space to relook and rethink some things, strategies, the structure. A lot of times people just get somebody in the wrong seat. And that's really important. You got to get you can have the right people on your team, but if they're not in the right seats on the bus, it doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah,
for sure.
So what we're doing is we're building this leadership development complex, and the idea is, we have hubs all around the country. We probably have 7 different dormitories, 30 different vehicles, and teams and workers and interpreters. I mean, there's a massive amount of infrastructure that when people come on a trip, they're just like, hey, we come, everything's here, our food's there, our cooks. We probably have, 15, 20 different cooks, and so you've got 7 teams there at one time all around the country. Well, they're working on different projects and different ministries where all these logistics, all these things have to be happening at one time. So you always have to be relooking and growing and refining and getting more sophisticated in your infrastructure. Yeah. And so right now what we're doing is, as an organization, we weren't quite ready for the growth that God was giving us. We were just growing and growing and growing. Yeah. And we're now ready. And now, infrastructure-wise, we have the largest undercover basketball complex. We have, 2 of our 5 baseball fields up, the permanent ones, and a couple of temporary ones. Wow. We finished the men's academy. We are just about to finish the church planning building. By April, it will be done. Wow. And now we've stepped on, and this is, we've stepped on faith and started the cafeteria, chapel, and worship school. And it's all in one building. But I believe what God's put on my heart next, and and this is just what we do best, is people think we're crazy. We just step out in faith all the time. Like, we have zero money for that cafeteria, chapel, worship school, but we are already going up. The foundation is in, and we're already going up in the walls.
Right.
And we'll borrow from Peter to pay Paul, but he always gets his money back.
Right.
And we have a $1 million line of credit, and we have people wanting to loan us millions of dollars all the time.
Wow.
And as of yet, God hasn't said that's the path I want you to go. But we want to build our dormitory next, and it's going to be close to a $2 million project, and it'll hold almost 500 people, and it's really segmented, cool, so that you can have a team like multiple baseball teams there at a time, and or multi-sports of all different kinds, but you can have your own area to meet, and coaches will have their own place, and they'll have a place for team meetings, and it's going to be super cool what happens. But with that, it's not just this sports, but it's a church playing, it's kingdom business, and we'll go out. It's not just like I think we have 600 kids in our sports academy right now, and that's great. And it'll grow to about 1,000. Will be probably our capacity there. Yeah. But that's not what I'm most excited about. What I'm excited about is inspiring those young men and women, and then taking them out into outlying areas within the country where people have nothing, and we love on them, and we bring a basketball camp or a baseball clinic, a serve project. We're going out taking care of people in the neighborhood. Then we invite them back for a play day at the campus. And now this kid who lived in the middle of nowhere, who his entire future was and currently is and forever would be in that little community, doing whatever little thing they did to eke by. Right. Now his whole world has just gotten that big. Yeah. And now he's like, wow, I could be a baseball player, or I could be a basketball player, or I could work in a business. I could work in a print shop. I could do sales. I could do accounting. And we're most excited about how we're going to get to train these young people, making disciples that make disciples, and planting churches that plant churches. So it is already happening. Yeah. It's already growing. We're already in, I think just a little over 100 communities. Wow. And growing, and some expression of church where it's a house church. We have kind of this house church, and then which is a small expression, just the gathering of God's people, and then a barrio church, a small church, 30 to 50 people, and then a city church, is that 150 to 100, and grows from there. And then we have the Nations Church, where we basically are going to bring people in, deprogram them of what they think church is or should be. Oof, yeah. Reload them with the theology of redemption. Yeah. Send them back with the model fully loaded for 4 years to start their own movement. And we have 4 countries already in with us that we're launching into, and I believe next year it'll be at least 4 to 8 more, and we'll hit multiplication. Should have been this year, but with COVID setting us back a year already, and probably going to lose the rest of this year. I would say, not next year, but the following. So in 2024, we'll hit multiplication, and so we'll keep doing addition and growing over the next 2 years. But then when we hit the multiplication factor, all these disciples will be out planting churches and recruiting apprentices to follow in their footsteps, and either stay or go launch another one. I think 1,000 would be a small number.
Wow. What kind of just touching on what you said there a minute ago, what kind of a battle is it on reteaching Christianity to people? Is that something that's
It is a challenge. It is a challenge because you grow up with something, and it's what you've always believed, what you've always thought. And most people don't even know why they believe what they believe. They've just been told this. Yeah. And that's why so many young people fall away from their faith when they go to college. They never had their own faith. They grew up on mom and dad's, and this is what you do. And they get out there and they test the water, and the world doesn't fall apart because they had a drink, or, they didn't, there are many things that we do to try and protect our kids because we love them. But, at the end of the day, people have to. I have two daughters. I'm married to a wonderful woman. She actually is Dominican.
Yeah.
And we've been married 27 years now, going on 28.
Wow.
And we have two daughters. Thanks.
Yeah.
We've been at Southeast for 21 years, and so they've grown up in church there, and they were very involved in leadership and worship, and then they got a scholarship to go to Ozark Christian, and they both graduated from there. And Gabriella went on to Denver Seminary, but she's been at a church as a worship leader in Tulsa for the last 3 years.
Nice.
And just got married last year, and they're almost 2 years now. They're happy as could be. And Brianna actually graduated last year from Ozark and went to Christ Church in Mason, Ohio. But then Southeast was starting a new campus in South Louisville, and they asked her to come be part of that team. So it was hard for her to leave that soon. She didn't want to, but at the same time, it was pretty special to be part of that group that was launching. And Cole Raglan's is doing youth, and Justin is campus leader.
He's awesome.
Well, Ashley used to work for me. She was
Oh, really?
She was my admin. Then Kyle, called, and I'm like, how do you say no to that? I would say you have to take it.
Yeah.
So it was great. We love the Weiss family, and just
Ashley's good at what she does too. She's stellar.
She's amazing. She actually helped me when I started the church planning movement.
Yeah.
And she's still involved with us. Obviously she's been very busy, at Southeast, but is getting more engaged and involved with us. And then, there's a whole group of us that are getting more involved down at the South Louisville campus, and we're excited about that. And, Chris Renner from over Ballard High School, and Will Pard, who played for him, won the state championship in 99, works for me. And there's a bunch of us that are, wanting to. Justin loves basketball and sees what a great ministry it can be. So we're gonna help all we can to get things growing down there. So it's exciting.
I'm excited to see that, because obviously the South Louisville campus being where Southeast Christian Church started out, and then to go back there to build it up again.
Yeah,
that's going to be awesome.
It's a great legacy. I mean, there are so many churches that were once in this prominent area, and then the area changes and demographics change, and a lot of times people don't, and they can't get over it, and so next thing you know, they're irrelevant and the doors are closed. I am so grateful for that group of people who not only had the foresight to launch churches out, but to say, hey, we're getting older, and we may not have as much oomph to get this going again, or to do something. And times change. There's a time to turn things over to the next generation, and
for sure.
Just super grateful for their wisdom, and I'm excited about what's going to happen down there.
Yeah, I asked Justin when everybody first moved over there and he was getting started. I was like, so what's your game plan here? Do you have any particular vision in mind or hope for this place? And he led off with, he's like, I don't know if you know this since you've grown up here your whole life, but he said Louisville, Kentucky is the fourth most segregated city in the nation. And he goes, I'm looking to put a stop to that. Like, I'm looking to connect the two halves of this city and put it together here. And I'm like, you've got a great location for it.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it backs up to the backside of Churchill. I mean, the opportunity they have is significant.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. But yeah, so going back to reteaching Christianity and everything to people who have kind of, I guess maybe they got the shaft of some sort of situation in their life, and they themselves perceive like, oh, this is what Christianity is. Like, maybe, I mean, a lot of times when like I'm having a Bible study with guys and stuff, the Christianity is directly affected by their relationships with their dad, right? Because
almost always
their dad's the ultimate authority in their life until they're on their own. And so their view of their earthly father is their view of their heavenly father. And that obviously is an uphill battle. But I was wondering, like, is that something that you have to deal with, or is it kind of like, I've heard other things too about like the short-term mission trips and sometimes the negative stigma that they can they can get going out there is a lot of people come out for a week, have a lot of fun, do a service project, take some pictures, say I love you, and then they go and the relationship doesn't happen, or the people don't return, or there's no follow up after the fact. And like that is one of the things where I'm like, I wonder if that is a battle itself. Like on your end, do you have to deal with any of that?
Well, there was a lot in that statement. So
yes, there was. That was a huge question.
There's multiple things. So first off, the helping people rethink church. We have to do that because, like in the Dominican, they talk about the church as the temple. It's the temple model. That's where God is. You come there to meet God, and so breaking that down, that God is with you, and wherever you go, there He is, right? And so that is one of the things we do. That's part of that, belong, believe, and behave model that is flipped up on its ear, and so everyone becomes responsible for sharing the gospel, not one guy that's in the house who's the man. Right. It's a dysfunctional system that doesn't work. That's not the way God intended it to be.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that is some work in itself.
Okay.
On another note, times have, there's nothing new, right? So things change and then they come back around like styles. Short-term mission. We were doing short-term missions before they were popular. We did them because we didn't have a language for it, but it was mutual transformation.
Yeah.
I could see the change it was making in these kids' lives. The relationships that we built, the going back to the same place, maybe even in different communities, but meeting the same people. Those were deep formed relationships that have impacted people's lives ongoing. They know their kids, they know their families, they, pray for each other. There's a true relationship. Then there was this time where, churches were, saying, hey, we don't, it's church camp. We don't need that. I mean, even church camp. I mean, there are many churches do their own thing because they think they can do it better.
Right.
And in some cases that's true. But man, church camp was a good thing.
Yeah.
And again, it needs to be done right, or it can be babysitting. But
right.
And people who have been against mission trips, it kind of for a while was like, yeah, that's kind of a negative. It's like, dude, we have 65% of all the wealth of all the world.
Yeah.
Among 5% of its people.
Yeah.
And you go to most any church, and the best churches out there who are giving big money. In the average church, less than 2% gets off our shores. Wow. Think about that. We have all the wealth. Only 2% gets off our shores. So in a good church, that's giving 10% to mission. And again, I'm not criticizing any of that. I'm simply saying people have good hearts, want to do good things. Right. Our church,
but those are the numbers, though.
It is the number.
Those are the numbers.
Our church, it's bigger because we're they're committed to missions, and
we're
so
intentional about that. Yeah.
Right. So they give, I don't know what it is, $12 or $13 million. I think the last number I saw was, and $4 million's going to. It used to be missions was it's all going
right
out away right. And then it started getting between foreign and national, and then foreign, national, and local. Then you have foreign, national, local, and benevolence.
Yeah.
So, the pie just starts getting split.
Right.
And everyone has to be their own. Every leadership has to decide what their focus is. There's one guy that he says, think global, act local. Well, that sounds great. But we've just given people an opportunity to do less and feel better about it.
Yeah.
Like there's a book that's out called When Helping Hurts. Great book.
Yeah.
95% of it is just right on.
Yeah.
But my experience in the mission world has been a lot of Americans missed the point and said, oh, that's complicated or it's a little messy. We're not going to support that. That's dysfunctional. We just gave Americans another way to feel better about doing less.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is to inspire people, engage people, and even people who don't want to go on mission trips. I'll ask them, how'd you get involved in mission? Well, I went on a mission trip. Oh, but that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
I think mission trips work well to inspire people, encourage people, let them participate in mutual transformation, and come home changed and empowered if they're done right. And I think we do it right.
Do you know Terry Jackson?
I do.
Yeah, so I went on a mission trip to Catania, Sicily in 2017. I was working with the West African refugees that were coming up from Libya.
Right.
And we met, me, him, and the rest of the people that were going from Southeast, and then there were 3 other guys from Team Expansion that were tagging along with us. And I was just kind of plugging him on some questions, and I was like, so what do I need to do? Like, what do I need to prepare for and all this? And he goes, I just need you to know something real quick. You're going to do a lot, and just have an open heart about it. This mission trip will definitely be more for you than it will be for anybody else. And I was like, well, I'm paying to go do this. So, I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but then I come home and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do the things that I'm doing now anymore. I'm going to completely change how I operate.
That's right.
I was serious. I was working in insurance, and I had like the prospect of like, I'm gonna work. I'm gonna save all this money. I'm gonna set up a nice house and a nice car and stuff. And I got back after making friends from West Africa who told me how they got from Libya to the last supported refugee port of the United Nations. And they're my age. And they have trades. They're carpenters, they're painters, plumbers. They can do things. It's not like they just, wandered around.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, none of this means anything anymore. Like coming back here and whatever was important to me before. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This is like, I can't live in a way where like the center of who I am and what I'm doing is not trying to bless people in some form or fashion. Like this podcast is just an outlet. This is what I can for sure do in the meantime. I can share testimonies. I can have conversations with people on what they're doing, and hopefully whoever listens, it tugs on their heartstrings. You know what I mean? And then they'll want to get involved. And like that's how I do it for right now. But like my wife, she wants to help at-risk youth people work with horses, so that because there's a whole field of just information and science behind connecting people with horses and the ministry that can come out of that. But no, you're absolutely right. Like, it's so crazy how we think that we're being innovative, but yet we're just making it seem like we're just making it more dangerous for people to give, or for people to want to sacrifice, and for people wanting to step out there. We're giving them an out almost, Yeah,
I again, there are many churches doing it right. Southeast is one of them. They are generous. They give. They support. They send lots of missionaries out. They love people well. But I work a lot with small churches and trying to help them get out of the box and get engaged. We created Go to help people get personally involved in missions. Yeah. Right. And again, we meet with a lot of different people, and somebody always knows how we ought to be doing something different or better, or whatever, and it's good to hear a perspective, But at the end of the day, what you experience is exactly what we experience. When people will sacrifice a little bit and go and get involved, go and see, right? Yeah. It changes them. I mean, it just does. Yeah. And we've had people that, had made decisions of who Go is, or who I am, or what we do, of the validity of it. And then they go and see, and their answer is always the same. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Yeah. I mean, I'm blown away. Yeah. God is absolutely in this. I'm like, he absolutely is in this. But you know what? We all get caught up in doing our stuff. There's nothing wrong with being in insurance. There's nothing wrong with having your own business and being very successful. But why did God let you be successful? Why did he give you the capacity to be a salesman, to, manage resources well? Yeah. Everyone has different gifts. Yeah. But there's one body. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, I'm grateful for those people who are just gifted to make money. Right. They create jobs, they can mentor and disciple people, and use those resources to empower kingdom efforts, both home and abroad.
Yeah.
And we love that. We encourage that. I connect a lot with business people around the country, and I just see this tremendous thing going on around the country where people want to be more intentional.
Yeah.
I love what our church is doing. The whole Unleash thing is just awesome, because
For sure.
what we want to do, we need to unleash the full power of the church, not just so the church grows. It's yes, come to church. Yes, grow in your faith. Yes, be a part of small groups and community. But that's just the beginning. That should be the expectation of every believer, to be connected in that way. And it's what gift and ability and talent and resources God given you that you can leverage that for the kingdom.
Right.
Like if you knew you were going to die next week,
Right.
I'll guarantee you're not leaving money stacked in a 401k. You're investing in now, I'm not saying be reckless. I'm not saying don't cast things out. We've done that a few times in our life when God has called us to, and it's been amazing to watch what God will do.
Right.
But I say, man, you got to step out in faith. You got to, if God's calling you to do something, whether it's take a bag of sandwiches and blankets down to the shelter or under the bridge, then the guy that led me to Christ, he is now in Afghanistan leading people to Christ and creating businesses and doing stuff undercover so that he can share faith. And he deals with all these drug addicts and alcoholics that live under a bridge, and they have a huge homeless drug population there in
Afghanistan. Wow.
And and I told him, you're going to be a martyr one day. I know. That's hanging out there kind of faith.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying everyone's called to that, but
how crazy is that, though, that people, I guess, at least in American Christianity is what I call it, is they don't realize that that's not off the table, being a martyr. And it's like, I think it's like if people understood that it was like, hey, you're saying that you believe in the same thing that some of these people in other countries are getting killed for in really bad ways, mind you, not just, like,
right.
Like whatever the capital or whatever it is, like people are getting tortured for this. And you're saying you believe in the same thing. Why are we acting differently here? Why are we acting so compartmentalized here? Why are we putting this all in a box? Why are we drawing the line right here? Where we're experiencing discomfort.
Well, it's a great point, but here's what I've found in all those conversations. You didn't choose to be born here. You were born here. Someone who is born in, poverty didn't choose that. Someone who's born into riches didn't choose that. Yeah. Right. But you're left to deal with the circumstance of your reality of what that is. I think it's easy to get cynical. It's easy to, bash. Hey, there's really no such thing as American Christianity. Yeah. We always, I hear that a lot, and I've said it myself.
Yeah.
There's only Christianity.
Yeah.
And I believe that circumstances, given its circumstance, and again, things are changing in our world. A lot of things. I mean, you go to jail for hate speech if you were to say, I believe in one man, one woman marriage. I mean, in other countries, that's hate speech. And, I like to stay out of politics as much as I can because I don't think it's a winning battle. I'm for Jesus. That's who I'm for.
Yeah.
But, I can't change the Bible and how it says we should live and what we should do, and I don't want to. Yeah. What I will say, though, is it is easy to get overwhelmed by all that's going on in the political world and the economic world, in the medical world.
Yeah.
And everyone just needs to take a step back and take a breath and get on their knees and ask Jesus to fill them with purpose and with passion, because Jesus is the only thing that really changes everything.
Right. Well, I don't want to try to drag you into politics or anything, but I do want to ask, because I've talked to Justin about this. I've had to talk to some other church leaders, and I'm like, for me personally, it feels like we lived in a time where we could leave all that at the door. and we could come in, we could worship, we could learn about God, we could have community and harmony with each other, and then, we go back to our lives, but we all have that camaraderie and that community of like, we're both people of faith. But today it feels like it's kicked down the doors and it's in the church and it's in the community and it has to be talked about or it has to be addressed. Have you had any experience with that at all? Have you had to say like, okay, look, we've got to talk about this or anything, or have you still managed to leave that at the door basically?
Well, it's a complicated thing. Yeah. Of course, anything that is being dealt with in the world is manifesting itself in church. Mm-hmm. We run a Christian mission. Yeah. And so we deal with certain things like, you have to be inclusive of this gender, this personality type, this mm-hmm. whatever it is,
Right.
So we don't talk politics within Go. I mean, certainly mm-hmm. everyone has their own opinion, and our people are spread all over the board as to their backgrounds and what they believe. And mm-hmm. But we have a core value in which we stick to and we point people to. Yeah. And do we see it in church? Do we see it in normal life? Yes. Is it, you can't turn on the TV without being just invaded with, it used to be, tolerance was I respect your right to believe and live how you choose to. Right. And respectfully, I can choose to disagree with that. Mm-hmm. But that's no longer allowed. If you don't applaud and support it, then you're a hater. And, mm-hmm. It's saddening that it's come to that. Mm-hmm. And I really don't know what the answer is. I mean, I don't, other than Jesus and his soon return, and I pray and hope for that. Mm-hmm. But all we can do is the best we can. People are hurting and they need to be loved. Kyle said one time, we should not be surprised by the craziness that's going on and the brokenness in the world. What we need to do is be prepared to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And, that's where I'm at. I don't think I'm going to sway anyone else's opinion. I don't think they're going to sway mine. But I think love conquers all. Mm-hmm. And when you can love people where they're at, regardless of their politics make your blood boil or that you don't agree with their, identity, choices or life choices. I think the church we've all got, when I say church, I mean the body of believers. Right. We need to all get better of meeting people where they're at, and loving people where they're at doesn't mean I agree with your choice, mm-hmm. right? And when someone's caught up in drugs or an alcoholic, you're not going to help them by putting a finger in their chest and mm-hmm. pointing out their sin.
Right.
You're going to help them by coming alongside them and loving them and supporting them and helping them get the help that they need.
No doubt.
There are churches that do a great job of dealing with some of our issues in society and have learned to really love well during that time. Yeah. And I think all of us want to do that. I just don't think we do it very well.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree. For one, I agree with that. And it's been disheartening for me to see how how it's kind of kicking down the door and like we're having to kind of sway back and forth more and more on this. And it's like, I don't know if we're just forgetting like, hey, we are all literally like children of God, and like we are all centered on one core belief that like Jesus is our Savior. And like when Jesus comes back and we're all in heaven, none of this will matter.
No,
not a shred of it will matter. But that's the thing, that like these conversations that I'm having with people my age and people in my community and stuff, I'm talking about the future of the world and what things are going to look like from here, and my predictions on like what is the future culture of America going to look like? What is it going to look like to be a Christian in America or the Dominican Republic or in Europe or in China, and what we ought to prepare ourselves for. And for you, what do you think that this is all something that, we've seen this before, and like this is kind of, there's a cycle to this sort of thing? Or would you be like, okay, look, you're going to have to
figure out what you believe in soon. Like, there's none of this like, yeah, I go to church. There's going to be like, I'm a Christian and I need to be prepared to plead guilty to that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I am not a prophet, so I can't say with any certainty. I would say, am I alarmed at our culture and where things are heading? Sure, I am. But I'm old. I'm going to be 60. It's hard to say that. I'm going to be 60.
What are you? What generation are you? There's the boomers.
Boomers, I guess.
Are you?
I was born 61.
Okay.
But I'm not in all that qualifying people. And I've been guilty of this generation millennials and whatnot. It's just a stereotyping that I don't think is very helpful to people.
Yeah.
And the reality, and I've done plenty of that. I'm not. I would say this. I want to get back to what you said. We are all sinners, all of us. Every one of us is absolutely dependent on the blood of Christ that forgives us of our sin. We can't be good enough. We can't earn it. And that's what scares me most, is how many people believe because they're a good person, if there is God, they'll be good. That scares me more than our politics and culture.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, my mother and father were concerned about the music we listened to and all, the culture where we're at. And, God ultimately is sovereign and he is on the throne.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, he will prepare his people to deal with it. And if we were to be in a crisis, if we were to be under, communist occupation, if we were to be forced out, if a whole market were to crash, if everything were to fall to pieces, true believers are going to follow Jesus, and those who are not are going to fall away. And one time I was in some church, it was kind of a chosen frozen, everybody sitting on their hands, and I was much more expressive in my worship. Man, like, how can we go to football games, basketball games, and throw our hands in the air and cheer, but we can't do that for Jesus, right?
Right.
That was kind of my philosophy. I mellowed out some. But, it was as clear as I ever hear, that little voice inside, I'm sure it was the Holy Spirit saying, that person would die for me. Would you? Who are you to judge them? And I'm like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
But I think that's been true throughout my life. We can get cynical and we can get judgmental of how we think things should be. I'll see someone that has tons of resource and they're not, in my opinion, doing anything significant. And it's so frustrating. I'm like, that's not your job. God didn't put you here to judge that individual. Now, why don't you do something productive and build a relationship and challenge them to get involved in some ways that can really make a difference in his life and the life of others? Hey, why don't you spend your time doing that? I'm like, that's a good idea. But it's a lot easier just to be cynical.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would encourage everybody, they say you can't do certain things at the same time. You can't worship and criticize at the same time. I'm at that place in my life where, I've watched these young leaders grow up, and will they lead like I did? No. Thank God. Things are better and better because, you disseminate power and authority, and you let, someone once said, you can have authority or you can have control. You can't have both. And really, I don't want either of it. I look at this next generation. I'm so inspired by these young group of preachers, that are out there. I mean, you watch the transition from Bob to Dave and to Kyle, and Matt is Kyle's right-hand guy. And I'm just inspired. I'm inspired for where our church is going, where they're heading toward. And there are many churches. Nate Ross is over at Northside, Tyler's at Northeast. These are young, passionate, just followers of Jesus. They're not, in the rock star club, hey, come, follow me. I just believe they get it. They have this passion to see the gospel lived out in a real way and to engage people in the community. I'm fired up about the Unleash thing. I know it sounds like a promo, but I mean, it is, even today they're having a conference, just engaging people, how they can get them plugged in. And that is mutual transformation.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Brooke, it's been awesome having you on the show and getting to, let people know about Go Ministries and what's going on and what you're involved in and the method to all of it and everything. For those who have listened, how can they connect with you, or how can they find you? How can they get involved?
You can go to our website, gomin.org. There are several Go Ministries out there. We're, by far the largest around, and you can come on a trip if you want to serve. If you'd like to get plugged in the prison ministry with Daryl at the Prisoner's Hope, you can go to the Prisoner's Hope. And they're looking for mentors all the time. They could use as many. I think they're mentoring 101 or 102 people right now. And there's always a need to drive somebody or to deliver clothes or a cell phone, or, when the guys are getting started, and guys and girls are getting started, getting out. So there's lots of opportunity locally for that. If you want to come on a trip, again, we do medical, we do sports, we do lots of community development, construction projects. You don't have to be an expert in anything. You come, be flexible, come with an open heart. Like Terry told you, that was a great word, because it's not just what God's going to do through you. It's what he's going to do in you. And you'll be changed. I tell people, God will do something deep, and you'll be forever grateful for that time. And so I don't know what, and he may, for some, they'll inspire them to start a ministry, or to reach out to a certain number of people in their community. Set some goals that are, hey, I want to be used by God, and I'm willing to step into that. And maybe it turns into a full-time thing. Maybe you work at GE and you volunteer, doing kid stuff on the weekend, and that is your ministry.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, we'd just love to have you come by, check it out. Be happy to, we've gotten to an array of topics today. I wasn't thinking it was.
I love these conversations.
Hey,
I really do.
It is what it is, man. I will say, the most important thing you can do is get boots on the ground. When you go and see, that's what changes everything.
It's the relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, there's lots of stuff we all have inside of us. We're all broken people. But when you can gather with other broken people who get that and who are looking to help build and encourage and point in the right direction, it's pretty awesome.
Awesome. Brooke, thank you so much.
Thank you, Drew. Have a great day.
Absolutely. You too. For those of you that have been listening, obviously, connect with Brooke however you can. I learned a lot today. I'm sure you guys have. We will see you next time.